social media is going to be determined, whether it's a record or not, by the same definition that we pull straight from the Public Records Act. What is a public record? It's any kind of information that documents a transaction or activity. Basically, it's evidence of government. So if there is anything on social media that is evidence of government, then it might be a record. If we have always said that it's regardless of physical form or characteristic, it does not matter what format it's in. Electronic records are public records, just like the paper and the microfilm of yesterday. We've always said it includes microfilm, electronic, photographic, audio, motion picture, video, and now thrown into that mix is social media. And typically, we think of a record as being something that is created from within the office, but that is not always the case. If it's produced, collected, or received, and that is certainly something that is happening on social media. That's especially if you have the comments or any type of communication feature going on. If that's going on between government and the public, you can just about guarantee that that's going to be a record. So this is a slide that we have used for many years to show what is an electronic record. And we talk about the formats, basically what the information is contained in, and the media, that thing on which the record resides. And we're probably still talking about servers, in almost every situation, hosting the social media. We just add social media to the formats. So it falls right in line. It's just the newest thing out there. But the difference with this, and a wrinkle that's kind of thrown in here, is that for maybe the first time in this type of environment, we're talking about something that's owned by a third party. So that's where it gets kind of interesting. So again, coming directly from the Virginia Public Records Act, what we'll call the VPRA, it is very specific that electronic records are included in those things that have to be maintained and accessible throughout their life cycle. And it's also specific where you've got to make sure that it's an accurate copy of the original record. So when it's calling for that, there's some challenges that are going to be introduced to that. We've always talked about media obsolescence, format obsolescence. Now we're talking about platform obsolescence. We think Myspace kind of still hanging out there, not quite what it used to be. And that's just some of the things you've got to consider. The record integrity. We talk about being able to capture that information in a way that's going to be usable. Most social media platforms offer some kind of ability to capture the information, but you need to be sure that the one you're using is going to do it in a way that is going to make the information or the record usable, or you're going to need to look at a third-party platform to be able to capture that information. Depending on what records are being created, you have to decide what series do they fall under. In government, there is retention schedules. That is basically the lifeblood of what we use to manage records. And if there are series on there that are, if there's records in that social media platform, then you need to figure out under what series do they fall. Typically, if the public is posting it, it is going to be a correspondence. If the agency is posting it to social media, it may be a record, but it also may well be a copy of something that exists elsewhere that would be the record and would be managed. And records and copies are certainly managed differently from one another. So that's all part of what has to go into the decisions as to how you're going to use social media, what business practices, business functions will social media be used, how will it be used, and then what records are going to be created from that use. When you're looking at capturing the record, the thing that comes with electronic records, it came with paper records, we just didn't think about it as much, but it's the record about the record. It's the metadata. When you are working with either the record itself from that social media platform or with a third-party social media archiving tool, what is the data that you're going to want to collect about the record? What is that tool going to offer you? Those are some of the things that you need to be looking at when you're thinking about capturing it, because that record is just as subject to FOIA and discovery as any other record that you have. For however long the retention is, and you have it, it's subject to those things. So we think of social media as being out there for everyone to see, everyone to access, but after a while that information may not be as findable as it once was in its original platform. And so again, whatever information rises to the level of a record, then that needs to be available throughout its full retention period. And how you go about doing that is what you need to be thinking about before you enter into that world of social media rather than afterward. I appreciate you all.
Okay, thank you. And thank you all for being here. I do work primarily in digital collections, but as I worked more on different platforms, that sort of just bled into social media because we naturally want to share what we've done and advertise it to people there. And also that's just where your audience is, and meeting our audience is one of the most important things that libraries can do today. So often social media is not the full-time job of any one person. Participation is difficult to coordinate within agencies and leads to a lot of miscommunication, ironically. Responsibilities might be shared across several positions with one person as the primary on each platform, or it could be one person coordinating all of the platforms, which is sort of what I do here. And we all want to be compliant with the Virginia Public Records Act. We knew that we needed to be compliant with it, and we were looking for a good solution. Because things do just slip through the cracks if you're relying on manual exports. That can be very tricky to do and to coordinate across all of these different platforms. And it's important to remember that the companies that own these platforms are under no commitment to make that data available to us, and certainly not forever. So as you're looking at different archiving solutions, it's important to know exactly what parts of the interaction you consider the record, as Glenn was saying. Is the record just the comment or the message, or is it the entire context and the order of that interaction? And while there are no official guidelines on those details, we chose to try and capture interactions holistically and chronologically. We also felt that access was an important part of the puzzle. Rather than have users spending time scrolling back endlessly through our feeds, why not give them a centralized search across all of our social media? If they want to see our edits or things we've hidden or deleted, it's all there, and there's no FOIA request required. So we always hope that people will archive in the spirit of the Public Records Act, not saving things just in case of emergency, but actually making it easy for people to find and access information. We've made several posts highlighting our social media archiving, and we've received no negative responses. No one has said, I no longer want to interact with you now that you're archiving. And in general, I hope this is part of the shift away from thinking of online interactions as somehow less real or less bound by the conventions of common courtesy, perhaps, than our usual interactions. Online communication is just as real as any other form, and now we're starting to really treat it that way. And even though some people are skeptical that state employees should be spending their time on social media at all, many people use Twitter and Facebook as their primary source of news, as I'm sure you know. A lot of feeds have replaced front pages for a lot of Virginians, and this is one crucial way we can communicate with the public we serve. We post about our services, events, and related historical topics, and it's become an important part of our communication strategy. Being transparent about how we communicate is another way we can welcome public input. Sunshine Week is a national initiative to promote dialogue about the importance of open government and freedom of information. Participants include news media, civic groups, libraries, nonprofits, and anyone interested in the public's right to know. The LVA has been participating for several years, and this is a good time to talk about how we fulfill our role as the state archive. This past March, we also highlighted our open archive. And just to show you that briefly, this is our main website for any of you that may be unfamiliar, and this is our open archive. As you can see, they were able to make the look and feel very similar to our website, so the transition is not jarring for users. That was important. And the search interface is very easy. You can just do a simple search or an advanced search. And we've had no problems with it. It's worked beautifully both for internal and external users. A good comments policy will help you decide if a comment is appropriate. A good social media archive will help retain even hidden or deleted comments to show as a basis for your decision if that's necessary. There's no reason to reinvent the wheel. If you know somewhere that you think does social media really well, just look at their comments policy and make yours pretty much the same. They're all kind of the same. Adapt it to your needs if you have any specific needs, and publish it broadly. So the comments policy and the open archive have made me feel much more comfortable and empowered when using social media on behalf of my organization. And there's a link there to our comments policy if that would be helpful to you. This shows a search performed inside our open archive. We've been posting a lot about African American records lately since that area of scholarship is expanding rapidly right now. And we've been watching the comments closely since we're not always sure how our audience will react. Some don't like seeing so many posts in this one subject area, such as the commenter here. I'm not sure if you can read that. But he didn't appreciate all of these posts we were making. And you know, if the debate starts to stray too far from the topic or becomes uncivil, I would feel within my powers to hide these comments from the public. I would know that they are backed up in the archive and that I have our comments policy to support my decision. And that would protect the library from any allegations of infringing on someone's First Amendment rights or future FOIA requests that might come in. So as you can see, the Archive Social Open Archive captures a lot of the metadata that we were talking about, which you can download as needed. So here are just some final thoughts on archiving social media and why we want to do that. It helps us retain the public records we generate through interacting on social media, and we make them easily accessible through Open Archive, and we really want to promote that transparency and good records management. So that's about all for me. If you have any questions, please let me know, and thank you for joining us today.